And good evening. As we
Settle
welcome
down,
you,
Craig. Hello.
We welcome you in, Caro. The fixture tonight again has been spun a Dorothy Dix with the opportunity now that football might be on the move yet again.
You're absolutely right, Craig, and we'll go into the details of round 8, which the AFL announced a few hours ago later in the show. But what happened this morning changed completely by this afternoon, and that is that football is now really concerned about the numbers. Only 13 or 14 today in New South Wales, but really concerned about those numbers and what could happen. We've seen Gillon McLachlan and his team stay ahead of the curve. So we've got Hawthorn now and Carlton headed to Perth at the end of their round 8 games. Melbourne expected, we're told on Friday they were playing Brisbane in Sydney. That game has now been moved to the Sunday night of round 8 at Metricon Stadium. What the AFL has done is basically locked down, pardon the pun, 4 high-performance centres on the Gold Coast. They're rolling contracts, and you ask people and they say the AFL have got them as long as they need them. That might be September. Hopefully not. It might even be October. We don't know where this season is going to finish up, but New South Wales has become a real concern. The grand plan now is to relocate both Sydney and the Greater Western Sydney out of New South Wales, potentially up to the Gold Coast. And there are also teams like Richmond, Melbourne, to name two, and also Essendon, who took the AFL's advice and travelled with smaller parties, who have now been told that the AFL will set up a special quarantine on the Gold Coast, not only for families, and that includes players from Geelong, their families, but staff and umpires, and extra players for Richmond and Essendon, who of course went away with lesser teams, so they can continue. They're going to have to stay away at least 6 weeks and possibly longer.
It's an extraordinary development to be getting footy out of New South Wales as the AFL kind of attempts in a weird way to outrun the virus spreads up the East Coast. And locking down Queensland might become important as a real estate play with NRL as a logical competitor in that part of the world, I think. It doesn't augur well for a return to footy in Melbourne any time this winter.
Well, it so much is contingent on the Queensland government and their medical authorities, who've been fantastic, it must be said, so far. The AFL clearly aren't going to do anything until they have them on side, but they're hoping that they can set up. So you've got the RDV, which is a small resort Richmond have stayed at, moved to and chosen to stay at, even though they were headed to the Royal Pines. The Royal Pines, you've got Southport, you've got the Mercure, you've obviously got the RACV up at Noosa. But one of those will become a high-performance hub for quarantining wives, children and extra footballers and extra wives and partners of umpires and coaches.
So, Caro, before we hand over to Kane, so at the end of the 32, 34 days, do we expect the Victorian players to head home?
No.
Oh, not at all.
No,
So
they'll still be in lockdown in Victoria.
Yeah,
it's just too difficult. That is why they're going to send up reinforcements.
Okay, so until grand final day, they'll be there. This is all for the end of the finals. Well,
no. We're talking now, at least for the period of the Victorian lockdown, pending staying ahead of the curve. If there is another poor situation, we don't know what's going to happen in New South Wales. But Craig, it obviously makes the grand final question even more interesting too, because what if it can't be in New South Wales? What if it has to be moved further north?
Yeah, it puts Queensland right in the frame. It's a fascinating one in South Australia. Dad was very big on the weekend in his column, Kane, that South Australia didn't deserve the grand final because they hadn't done their bit and let teams in. Do you think the South Australian government might have to have a rethink here if it is one of the places that you can play footy?
Well, it looks as though it might only be 2 places, Hutchie, that it's a possibility, and that's WA and South Australia. So there's going to be, a couple of games in South Australia from round 8. We'll see how they handle that with crowds of about 20,000, and in Perth as well with crowds of up to 30,000 this weekend. But you'd imagine that Victoria is completely off for the grand final. It can't happen there. They're going to have to start making arrangements for the grand final soon, Carol. It's not just an easy event they can put together in a couple of weeks.
End of August, Kane. It'll be the end of August, they'll make a call on that.
That's pretty soon.
And the MCC and the Victorian government have not given up on a 50,000 crowd at the MCG. Not yet.
Nor should they give up. There's a long way to go.